Life is Beautiful is a 1997 Italian period comedy drama film directed by and starring Roberto Benigni, who co-wrote the film with Vincenzo Cerami. A kind-hearted Jewish-Italian waiter, Guido Arefice, falls in love with Dora, a charming schoolteacher, and wins her heart through his wit and playful spirit. They eventually marry and have a young son named Joshua. Their joyful life is suddenly shattered when Guido and Joshua are taken to a Nazi concentration camp, separated from Dora. To protect his son from the terrifying reality around them, Guido invents an elaborate story, convincing Joshua that they are part of an elaborate game. Alright, so I have watched Life is Beautiful, which is an incredible, heartfelt, beautiful film. This is genuinely like a masterpiece of a film. The title itself, Life is Beautiful, apparently, according to Roberto Benigni, comes from a quote by Lev Trotsky, if I pronounced that right, when he was in exile in Mexico, and knowing that he was going to be killed by assassins sent from Joseph Stalin, he saw his wife in the garden and wrote down, despite, everything else, despite the chaos, that life is beautiful. And so, quite an inspirational quote and quite an interesting title for such a harrowing film that deals with the Holocaust, but in a very comedic way. It's very, very hard to create a comedy, but with the backdrop of one of the most haunting, if not the most haunting, genocide in history. But of course, history repeats itself. Genocide does not stop. But yeah, watching this film evoked a wide range of emotions in me, from laughter to sadness to hope, and a very deep reflection at the very end. And this film does an amazing job balancing humor with the harsh reality of the Holocaust, making it emotionally powerful and very memorable. The film highlights unconditional love, whether it's romantic or parental or familial. This film could probably be best separated into if you wanted it to separate this film. Not saying the film is great as its own. It's a great film by itself. But if you had to separate it into two acts, I would definitely say that the first half would be considered a more romantic comedy, and then the second half is sort of a tragic comedy that deals with the war, but comedy in the backdrop of the war. It's quite interesting. It's like two different films in a way, but I thought it was handled very meticulously and very nicely. And yeah, the characters themselves are such amazing role models. Not only Guido, who's the father and could easily win Father of the Year for just his ability to make the most tragic moments into the most lighthearted, but even the wife herself, Dora, she willingly follows her family into the concentration camp, even though she's not Jewish. And so I think all the characters in this film are genuine role models, especially the main three, Guido, Dora, and Joshua. I think Guido's optimism in adversity is definitely a teaching point. I think this film carries a lot of life lessons, especially that, how mindset can shape one's perspective, even in suffering. And I think his efforts to shield his son from the horrors of the war show the depth of parental bravery and parental love as well. I think this is a film that definitely has multiple different types of audiences, for sure. Whether it's people that want to learn more about history, or people that are parents themselves or fathers themselves, or even someone like me who's just a natural film connoisseur and just wants to watch the most amazing films ever. This literally fits all those categories. It's that incredible. And yeah, I already mentioned before, I love the characters. I love Guido. Guido, he uses his humor and imagination to protect his child. Dora defies societal expectations. In the film, she's actually from a higher social class, and she's going to be married to this other, sort of aristocrat in a way. But she ends up falling for Guido, who's, this lowly waiter, lowly in the sense, he's a bit poor, definitely of a lower social class, but she defies expectations in that regard. And then Joshua himself, I think the second act of the film or second half of the film is like more from, of course, we still follow, you know, Guido as a protagonist, but we see a lot of the war from Joshua's perspective because Guido has done such an amazing job of turning the war into a game. We see things from Joshua's perspective of how like everything becomes a matter of how many points you have and, you know, hiding. It's actually quite incredible how Roberto himself, because I know he wrote and directed this film as well, how he just managed to make the war or turn the war into a game. It's very difficult. I don't know how he did it. I'm sure there was, of course, some criticism of turning the war into comedic purposes, but I think it just works pleasantly for me. And just what, by the very end, he has his perspective preserved by his father's creativity. The ending itself is very beautiful. And it's very poetic in a way as well. But yeah, I mean, this film definitely depicts the brutal reality of concentration camp. Even though it does turn, you know, most of it into comedic stuff, it doesn't hold back, you know. Major characters die. It shows sort of the hard physical labor that some of the Jews had to do. But nonetheless, it still maintains this tone of hope through Guido's actions. But yeah, I mean, and also the film itself is not visually breathtaking. This was of course made in 1997, but it definitely reminds, I'm sure, other viewers of like Charlie Chaplin's The Dictator, I believe was what the film is called, which I'm not sure how long ago that was. It definitely feels like this was a film made in like the 60s and 70s. So by modern standards, it's not visually groundbreaking, but it's definitely effective in evoking the period and emotional tone. The production sets themselves, I felt, were very immersive and very authentic. I think, yeah, the entire film is set in Italy. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this film just really inspires self-reflection on fear, on love, on determination. It really encourages living life to your fullest potential and valuing relationships over material success. I know the actress for Dora, Nicoletta Braschi, I don't know how to pronounce that. She actually plays Roberto's real life wife. And you could definitely sort of, I didn't know that beforehand, but now looking back retrospectively, you totally get that dynamic between the two. It's very sort of refreshing to actually see a husband and a wife in this film that genuinely love each other and genuinely take the greatest sacrifices and risks to be with one another. It's genuinely like, it's just a family that's just trying to get through the sufferings of the war together. But yeah, I mean, there's literally not one point where I feel like there was an argument. They just really love each other. It's actually quite beautiful. And yeah, I highly recommend Life is Beautiful for its emotional depth, its very meaningful themes, its unforgettable characters. It's a story that stays with you for sure. I'm still thinking about it. And it offers, again, these valuable life lessons about love, about sacrifice, about resilience, determination, grit. I know Roberto Benigni won, rightfully, the Oscar for Best Actor. I just think he's just such a charming lead. I haven't seen the YouTube video yet of him winning the Oscar, but I know a lot of people were talking about, or from what I read online, when he won the Oscar for foreign language film as well and for Best Actor. He like jumped up on his seat and he was very, you know, enthusiastic about it. And I just think he's such a character in of himself, you know, like very charming lead, very Jim Carrey type, if Jim Carrey was like Italian. And yeah, I mean, the way he just acts in the film, he's so enthralling, you know, and you can't take your eyes off him. And I believe this also marks the second time that an actor directed himself in an Academy Award winning performance. The first time I believe it was for Hamlet or whatever it's called. Sir Laurence Olivier won that. I believe it was Hamlet. I don't know why. Was it? I actually don't remember what it was called. If it was Hamlet or Hamlet. But yeah, I mean, Roberto Benigni, truly a man of his own category. And yeah, I mean, I didn't even talk about the screenwriting of this film, but I just think it's a great writing ability. He has great writing ability overall, and just a mastery of timing. It really just feels like one huge comedy skit, which is why I think it sort of reminds me of like, Chaplin, and of course older comedy films. Just sort of like slapstick comedy in a way. Not too slapstick, but I think especially like the first act of this film, it feels it feels sort of like a skit in a way, but in a very, very good way. Just masterful timing. And the film also avoids this very, I kind of want to call it this Hollywood tendency to sort of exacerbate like these emotional components of a war, or of a tragedy, of a disaster. This film itself never really goes over the top in its emotional, like in emotional terms. It never really goes over the top. There's not one point in this film where Guido or Dora just break down crying. Like, by crying, I mean like waterfall crying. Like, I'm talking about like that Liam Neeson scene in Schindler's List when he just breaks down on that guy's shoulder. There was never really that harrowing moment in this film. And of course, I'm not dissing Schindler's List by any means. I actually think Life is Beautiful is a very separate but also powerful take on anti-Semitism in comparison to Schindler's List. I think one movie tends to like really emphasize the harsher and the harsher emotional components of the war, and then the other film just sort of glorifies the more comedic aspects of racism, of discrimination, how stupid it is, how stupid it is to just like persecute others because your race is superior. And so at the end of the day, this is a very wondrous tragic comedy. And it shows that life is tragic and comedic all at once. So I'm going to give Life is Beautiful a 10 out of 10. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.